Picture this: a chiseled action hero, muscles rippling from his latest blockbuster role, sits down for a no-holds-barred interview and drops a bombshell that sets the internet ablaze. That motherfucker. We are adversaries. Alan Ritchson snarls, aiming his venom at none other than Matt Gaetz, the former Florida congressman whose name has become synonymous with scandal. What's the deal with this explosive feud that's leapt from the hallways of a sleepy Florida high school to the glossy pages of GQ? Get ready for a wild ride through teenage ties, political firestorms, and a Hollywood star who's swinging hard. You'll uncover the roots of their rivalry, the jaw-dropping accusations, Gaetz' defiant response, and why this clash is more than just tabloid fodder. Stick around to the end for a twist that might just make you wonder if Ritchson got a future beyond the screen, and why this saga's far from over. Back to the beginning. Niceville days. The story starts in Niceville, Florida, a quaint panhandle town where Alan Ritchson and Matt Gaetz were once just two kids navigating the awkward chaos of high school. Ritchson, class of 2001, trailed Gaetz, class of 2000, by a year at Niceville High. Back then, they were nobodies. Gaetz, the son of a local politico, and Ritchson, a tall, athletic kid with no clue he'd one day headline a hit TV show. Their paths crossed in classrooms and corridors. But who could have predicted that 2 decades later they'd be slugging it out in the public eye? Fast forward to 2025, and the contrast couldn't be starker. Ritchson riding high as Jack Reacher, the stoic justice-dealing titan of Prime Video's Reacher, a role that cemented him as a Hollywood heavyweight. Gaetz, meanwhile, has crash-landed from his perch as a brash Republican congressman, his career derailed by a slew of allegations that erupted in late 2024. It's a classic tale of diverging destinies, one climbing to stardom, the other tumbling into infamy. But what lit the fuse on this personal powder keg? The GQ bombshell. Ritchson unleashes. The spark came on February 19, 2025, when GQ dropped an interview with Ritchson that read like a script for one of his action flicks. Except this time, the villain was real. That motherfucker. We are adversaries, he declared, his voice practically leaping off the page. This wasn't a casual diss, it was a full-on assault. Ritchson didn't just dislike Gaetz, he loathed him, and he wasn't shy about saying why. For Ritchson, it's about more than politics. It's personal. He painted Gaetz as a figure whose character was dubious even back in their Niceville days. A kid who grew into a man Ritchson can't stomach. "He's just not a good dude," he exclaimed, his frustration palpable. The actor zeroed in on Gaetz's tenure in Congress, particularly a bombshell House Ethics Committee report from December 2024 that accused Gaetz of everything from drug-fueled parties to paying for sex claims. Gaetz has vehemently denied. Ritchson couldn't wrap his head around why their shared hometown kept sending Gaetz back to Washington. "It's shocking to me that the panhandle of Florida continues to vote for somebody, knowing everything we know about him," he fumed, his words a mix of disbelief and disgust. But Ritchson didn't stop there. He hinted at insider dirt, alleging Gaetz made promises behind closed doors about pardoning certain criminals. Was he nodding to Gaetz's loud support for January 6th defendants, or something juicier? Ritchson didn't elaborate, but the implication was clear. Gaetz's public persona didn't match the man he knew. It's a grudge that's been simmering for years, now boiling over in a way that's impossible to ignore. A political pipe dream? Ritchson's outrage didn't just fuel a rant. It sparked a wild ambition. "I've thought about it," he said, when asked if he'd ever run for office to take on guys like Gaetz. Imagine it. the 6'2" star who plays a one-man wrecking crew swapping fight scenes for stump speeches. He quickly laughed it off, though, admitting, "I don't think I'm duplicitous enough to be a politician." It's a self-aware jab. Ritchson knows he's too blunt, too straightforward to play the political game. But the idea lingers, tantalizing in its absurdity. Could a guy who's made a career of busting heads on screen actually clean up Washington? It's a long shot, but in this feud, anything feels possible. Gaetz strikes back. Matt Gaetz, true to form, didn't take the attack lying down. The former congressman, whose political star dimmed when he resigned in November 2024 amid the ethics probe, fired back on X. "Alan and I were not adversaries. In school," he wrote, brushing off Ritchson's venom as a cheap ploy for Hollywood clout. Gaetz tried to flip the script, casting himself as the wronged party, and Ritchson as a fame chaser dredging up a non-existent rivalry. It was vintage. Gaetz, defiant, dismissive, and dripping with sarcasm. But the comeback fell flat for many. With his reputation battered by allegations and his congressional seat a memory, Gaetz's attempt to paint Ritchson as the opportunist didn't quite land. If anything, it underscored how far he'd fallen since his days as a MAGA darling. Ritchson, by contrast, is at the peak of his powers. Untouchable in Hollywood, unapologetic in his stance. This wasn't a fair fight. It was a mismatch from the jump. Why this feud hits different. So why does this spat matter beyond the gossip columns? Because it's a microcosm of two Americas duking it out. Ritchson's the outsider who made good, a small-town kid who clawed his way to the top, and now looks back with a mix of nostalgia and nausea at what Gaetz represents. Gaetz, love him or loathe him, is the poster boy for a brash, unapologetic strain of politics that's thrived on controversy. Until it didn't. Their clash strips away the polish, revealing how personal history can ignite public fireworks. It's also a story with legs. Ritchson isn't just throwing shade, he's calling out a system he thinks failed his hometown, and maybe himself. Gaetz, meanwhile, is fighting to reclaim a narrative that slipped through his fingers. This isn't a one-off headline. It's a saga with roots in the past and branches stretching into an uncertain future. The twist? What's next? Here's where it gets juicy. Ritchson's offhand comment about running for office might be more than a quip. In a world where celebrities like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Donald Trump have turned fame into political capital, why not Ritchson? He's got the charisma, the name recognition, and a bone to pick. Sure, he claims he's not cut out for it, but that honesty could be his edge. And Gaetz? Don't count him out either. He's a political phoenix who's risen. From ashes before, could this feud light a fire for a comeback? By the end, you'll see this isn't just about two guys from Niceville. It's about where they're headed next. Will Ritchson trade his Reacher badge for a ballot? Will Gaetz claw his way back to relevance? The answers are unwritten. But one thing's certain, this high school reunion turned slugfest is a drama worth watching. Don't blink. You might miss the next punch.